guys. Hopping in to talk a little bit about information consumption. So the thing that we wanted to discuss today was the idea of where you are getting your information from. And you were on with us today, so thank you very much for getting some of your information from us. But when you are on Instagram or when you are on Facebook or when you are following certain people, it can be very easy to let your focus be artificially narrowed, especially when you start to see the same digital entrepreneurs refer to other digital entrepreneurs, and then you follow those digital entrepreneurs, and so you get information from those people and you get it echoed from other people who follow them or who work with them or that kind of thing. And the problem is too is that because you're not, hey Kate. Hello. Let me just finish up this thought before I lose it. The problem is when you are following entrepreneurs or digital marketers who also follow or are associated with the same digital marketers, sometimes because you're hearing the same things echoed back to you, it can seem like that's the only piece of information out there. The funny thing is being on this side, being a digital entrepreneur and knowing the various communities, there's so many people who know each other, which is amazing and fantastic. But that means that sometimes things you're hearing from two different people doesn't mean that it's true because you're hearing it from multiple people. It's something that you're hearing, or it's the only tactic or something like that. You know, this is every sales funnel has to be this long or every marketing funnel has to be this long. Doesn't mean that because you're hearing it from two different people that it's extra valid or super valid or something, or the truth, but it's just being echoed by people who are associated with each other. So the crux of this is that you want to be getting your information from as many different sources as possible. You want to be following as many different industries and experts as possible.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to chat about this too is because it comes up a lot in the group where I feel like people start to see things. And I know we've mentioned this before of, the algorithms are kind of designed. Once you search for one thing, you're going to see a lot in that same vein. And so it's important to remember and kind of step outside of that to know that there's a world beyond just the people that are advertising to you on Facebook. There are so many tools and tactics that are not being advertised on Facebook that aren't involved with a course creation, for example. And so it's really important we talk about not niching. And so in this similar sense, not niching on the information you're consuming on a daily basis. And so really actively going out to look at other places. What are other copywriters doing? What are copywriters that don't even, spend time in the online space, which there aren't a ton, but there are people that, maybe just do digital work for clients, but they're not necessarily, they don't have a huge presence on Instagram or on Facebook or on any of the social media platforms. And there's a lot of that. And I say that because it was funny before I joined Nikki and really working with the Filthy Rich Writer team, it was a world that was very adjacent to, I feel like, the world I was working and living in. I was in some senses consuming limited information in my own bubble and not, necessarily paying as much attention to what was going on in the online space. So opening up that world was like, oh, whoa, okay. Great that I'm, now consuming a lot of different information, but I can definitely see, especially with students, when that's all they consume, it becomes very limiting and it becomes very narrowing on possibilities and expectations, really, and feeling like you have to do something one set way when there's actually a whole broad way of ways to approach this. You don't need a social media presence if you really don't want one, if that's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think that, in fact, I think it just answered a comment on the blog post, on a blog post about how, I've been seeing so much copywriting stuff come back to me and copywriting templates, which we know are BS, but like copywriters, copywriting templates, all of this stuff, I've been seeing it all over and I've been nervous. And yeah, you're seeing copywriters and copywriting template and anything having to do with marketing and copywriting because you are following us. And so Facebook and Google and Instagram and all of these companies know that that's something that you're interested in. So they're showing you more. You know, other people who have not ever searched for copywriting are not seeing that amount of copywriting stuff come back to them. You are seeing a ton of it because they have identified that you are interested in copywriting. Same thing, if you were to go online and search for, you know, Mazda, you would start seeing a lot of Mazda ads. Or if you went on and started, you know, searching for Pinterest, you would start getting a lot of Pinterest ads, that kind of thing. And it's that confirmation bias that, well, I'm seeing a lot of this and therefore there is a lot of this. It's a fallacy. The reason you're seeing a lot of it is because you started to see, because you started looking for it, and therefore they're all sending it back to you because you're looking for it. So great, they're like, all right, here's a ton. And the same thing goes for information. You know, the information that's being served up to you on Facebook, on Instagram, and any of this stuff, it's all balanced by their algorithms. There are algorithms behind all of this stuff. And even in terms of the people that you see, once you follow one person on Instagram, Instagram is going to suggest that you also follow these other similar people. And so if they're similar in one way, they're probably similar in other ways, and they do things in similar ways. And I guess what it really all comes down to is just be aware that what you are seeing is not, again, I don't want to say objective, but what you are seeing is a sliver of all possibilities. And it's the perception that is being served up to you by social media. And I don't mean that in like a conspiracy theory kind of way, but really in a literal way, that they're building your newsfeed to support what you have previously been interested in, which makes a lot of sense. And that's how these businesses, or one of the ways these businesses have been so successful. But that just means that it doesn't mean that because you see it from two different people, that means it's absolutely true. In fact, it means that it verifies that you're following similar people and similar people who have similar philosophies. And like I was saying, maybe even entrepreneurs who know each other. And so they're sharing similar concepts.
It makes you feel like, oh, I have to do whatever it is that they're doing. So whether it's selling, you know, templates, and you're like, oh, I have to sell templates. Remember that that's not copywriting.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you know, everyone talks about launches and then it's like, oh, I have to launch my copywriting business. No, you just send pitches. You don't, you know, don't overcomplicate what you need to do for your goals, and remember that there's multiple paths to get to where you want to go, and really grounding it in context. You know, if you follow someone who, you know, really focuses on course creation and with course creators, then knowing that a lot of their advice might be step-by-step instructions for that particular niche and that particular audience. So, you know, you can read things that have very like step by step, here it is, and you're like, oh, perfect, this is what it is. But remembering that that's for something specific, and they might not be as obvious in calling that out, in the sense that you might not realize, if you don't know that that's their audience, it may not be black and white that that's what that is, who that's targeting and who that's intended for. So just remembering to kind of step back and think about it a little bit, slow down and kind of say, okay, who is this person's audience? What does this mean? How could I apply this? But in what ways might I not apply this advice? Or, ooh, maybe I disagree with this advice for whatever reason. I know it's very tempting to want to find things that say, here's what you have to do and here's how it is, this is black and white. And I know people like that, but the reality is this is a very nuanced career, and with the different clients you're going to work with, there are inevitably lots of variables, and everyone in the CCA knows we can walk through your specific scenarios and what's going on there. But to look at advice and not just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do because this is what, to your point, two people said. Okay, is there a differing opinion out there? Is there someone I can talk to offline that is also a copywriter in my network that might have a different perspective, or who has been doing this longer, who has worked with different types of clients?
Yeah, exactly. It all comes back to, there are a lot of great ideas out there. So take them as ideas, but it all comes back to what actually solves your client's need. Like Kate said, someone who caters to course creators, a business coach who caters to course creators. Fantastic. They might have you need this and this and this and this and this. But that doesn't even mean it's true for every single course creator. It all depends on what your client's exact need is. And that's why it's so important to actually talk to your client, to ask them questions, and to learn as much as you can about their business. And I think sometimes newer copywriters are nervous about that input call, that kickoff call. They're nervous about asking too much or seeming like they don't know. You want to dig in as much. You want to know everything about your client's business as you can possibly learn. And frankly, as your clients will appreciate that. They want someone who cares. They don't want someone who comes in and goes, oh, okay, so you want to sell this? Okay, great. Well, then we're going to put together this for you. You need a sales page and you have to have this and you have to have this. They want someone who's going to listen to their needs and their goals, and they want someone who will come up with a customized plan for them, not and like we were talking about copy templates, which don't work again, but also launch templates or sales templates, or templates can be good for generating ideas maybe, but effective copy and effective projects are based on your client's objectives and your client's needs. And you can't, anytime you get away from that, you are heading in the wrong direction. I'm talking about day rates and talking about how that puts the focus on you instead of focus on your client. Anytime you're like, what should I do here? What should I do here? It's almost always, when you're talking about client issues or not client issues, but when you're talking about things to do with your clients or things to do with how you're setting up your business or things to focus on in your business, it's almost always going to be the best reframing or the best refocus to think, okay, what best serves my client? What does my client need from me? And that's not to say like, oh, my client needs copy for free. Like, okay, that's just not going to happen, right? You're not going to give away your services for free. But what does your client need in terms of how you provide that service? What does your client need in terms of check-ins? What does your client need in terms of, what's
pricing tangent, but it goes for day rates as it does for general pricing, because that's another thing I think that you see in the online space of like, I just need to find the person that has the online guide to pricing and this is exactly how I should price each of my services. That's another thing that again is bogus. And do your own research, and to take someone else's hard and fast pricing is just wild to me, not knowing what level they're at, where they're at, what their client actually needs.
And quite frankly, we get paid well for what we do, and we should, because what we do is challenging, and it takes thinking and it takes work, and part of that is figuring out your prices and customizing the project to what your client needs.
It's that balance, knowing your worth, and we fully support that, but also knowing the worth of what you're doing and knowing that there's plenty of room to grow, and that not everything is going to be just, let me try to get as much money out of my client as possible. Because again, back to your point, it's all about what value can I add for my client? And these kind of quick fix things that you see a lot just tend to not end up providing the value that you need to provide as a professional.
Yeah. It really all comes down to, well, two things really. Focus on your client's needs, and also just be aware of the information that you're taking in and the elements that could be coloring what information you're seeing or what information you're hearing. And also, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that it's real. Just because you're seeing something, just because someone puts out a pricing sheet doesn't mean that it's based on anything real. Just because a copywriter puts out a pricing sheet doesn't mean anybody's actually hiring them to do that work. Just because a company is putting out a average salaries of copywriters, who knows where that data is coming from? And that also doesn't mean that it's applicable to you, because it doesn't talk about, what is your level of experience and what is. So focus on your clients And then also the information that you're getting, just take it, evaluate it, carefully evaluate it, keeping all of these elements. I think we've actually touched on a ton of different stuff in this, but evaluate it. Just be savvy and be aware that that what's coming to you is not, that there's so many different things that's coloring the information that is coming to you, really, in any arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for diving in. I think we just kind of went down a whole different, but
information's in a lot of places. So yeah, analyze all of the information.
Yeah.
A lot of
absolutely.